Gundam.tk presents 1/100th Neo Gundam. Hey, what's up again everybody? It's Robert184, 2 R's 2 B's from GundamReviews.net, and I'm continuing my look at Tokyo Randall's lead Gundams. After the Silhouette Gundam, we've got the Neo Gundam, and you can see from these empty plates, and more importantly, these empty, ridiculous number of seals, that all the parts are put together, so let's take a look at those before putting it all together. The standard body parts that you'd expect from an early 1990s Gundam, with the weapons and accessories including 2 clear green beam sabers, the shield, the core fighter which is looking pretty sharp, and the G-Bird, its big long distance weapon. Starting with the legs first of all you're just going to have a polycap there to attach the hips on, and you're just going to have a solid mount on the waist mechanism. But in terms of the bend of the knee, you're going to have this much and this much, so you're going to get 90, but it's going to take you 2 points to get it there. And otherwise, the thing that you're going to notice the most about this is the seals. You've got some of them where the white is a little bit different from the plastic, and because of that, they're really going to stand out. I went at this one with some black Gundam marker, but otherwise they do give you a yellow seal. I put some black seals on there. And generally, I went with a little bit understated lining here. There are more places if you wanted to put it on. Otherwise, you do have lots of opportunities, and again, some black down there. But for the ankles, you do have something that's a little bit unusual, where you've got this gray part, or the gunmetal part, that's attached onto the back of the leg, and when you attach it in, you are just going to have a polycap, and the ankle guard is going to move, but don't expect too much more mobility. But something to be aware of is that these seals, some of them are cut just too large if you take them right out of this sheet, so if you want to do things properly, you should trim these down before putting them on, and then you'll avoid some of these problems. But overall, I think the seals are adding a little bit of fun to this otherwise sort of nondescript kit. But then again, they do stand out in a bad way sometimes. You can see that some of these are going to have solid white behind them. They're going to come off the one sticker sheet. There are the 2 types, and then the other one is going to be the clear one behind. You can see that these green ones here are going to have the white behind it, which allows for those black tick marks. It would have been a lot easier just to line that if they had given you space. But sometimes these clear ones don't fit on there all that well either, and even if you go over it with a Q-tip, you can still see that they're raised up and not looking all that sharp. This is the clear variety, easy to go in here with some lining. This is looking okay, but you don't expect anything fancy here for the side skirts. They are on a small white mount mechanism that's just going to attach on here, so no polycap parts there. Lining opportunities, a red seal there, and overall I'd say that the front is looking pretty good, if a little bit gaudy. The chest section actually tones it down a little bit, which is somewhat surprising, and you are going to have the pieces. When you put it together, it's all just blue with the red and the yellow. This was injected from the plates if you saw the first part. But then what's sort of cool is you actually take these white parts and you just plug in one on this side and one on the other side. So you are going to get the 4 main colors. And then you do have a gray seal, which is not going to fit perfectly. This is the kind of thing where it could have been bigger, and then you put the seal down first before covering it up with the white, and it would have been all been covered up. But unless you're looking at it from this kind of angle, you're not really going to see it when it's on the shelf. On the back, you're going to have these nice attachments here for the core fighter to plug in. It's going to fit in quite well, and you are going to have these attachment points, so it is going to be somewhat separated when you put it on. Solid shoulder mount, solid neck mount there, and you are going to have this seal, which going over the round part is going to look a little bit ugly, although the red, white, and yellow is looking a little bit cool. A gray seal here, some writing there, and you can choose how to line these vents. I actually like the looks of these arms, except for the fact that you do have this gray sticker up here on the front, and because it's rounded, you can see that it's already peeled up in the time that I took between building it and filming this, so again, a Q-tip every once in a while is going to be needed to probably keep this down in place. I didn't do anything with these vents over on the side. You could put some lining there if you want, but I actually like the understated part here, just 2 little tick marks and you can go in there. And it's the same thing here for the forearms, just a little bit of blacking, a little bit of lining, it brings out a little bit of color. Overall though, if you're looking for a bend though, don't expect more than 70 degrees, I'd say that that's pretty poor. Only the right arm is actually going to have this seal down on the wrist, and then you're going to have the 3-finger trigger figure split, and these are going to move independently. Of more interest to note though is the AFX seal. All the action is going to be on the left hand here. The Anaheim formula experiment, similar to the F91 if you want to go back to the earlier parts and see the relationship here, but anyway, I think it's looking very cool. The seal is a little bit long, so it's going to overlap either here or here when you put it on, but overall I think it's a very nice thing to go along with the F91. Down here though, you're going to have the shield generator, which is looking pretty cool, unless you look at it too closely. When it's molded, it's going to have the white, yellow, and red all in it. This is one single part. And then you're going to have a white part underneath that you attach on. But if you look at these sides really carefully, you'll notice that this part doesn't have any yellow or red. I think it's really cool that they molded that all the way in. However, unless you look at it really closely, you're not really going to notice it. And if you have the same yellow and you want to go match that up, you could just fill that in to make it look good. But overall, this is a very interesting kind of weapons part, and it's certainly going to draw the eye once it's put together into MS mode. And they actually give you two, which is cool. So this one is going to be molded into the green shield. When you cut it off, you are going to have a little bit of a red mark that's left over there, so you'd have to go over that with some white, which would be a little bit of a pain if you want to take care of it. The yellow is not so noticeable at the top and bottom, so anyway, just when you're cutting it, don't put it this way so that it's at least hidden towards the back of the body. You're not going to notice anything here with the white underneath not having that yellow and red included because it's going to be attached in, and it is worth noting that these are different lengths down there in terms of the base, so that this one is better to have on if you've just got it without the shield, and this one's better to have it on when you do. Two green beam sabers complete the close range armaments, and they are going to have green handles though, but those should hopefully be hidden mostly in the hands when they're in use. But it's the long range GBRD that's probably the most interesting feature here, unless you want to count the shield as being the most interesting. A little bit disappointing though that it only has the two colors in there. It would be nice. You should have some blue around here and some blue around there, so a little bit of tape and an airbrush or a spray can, and you can get that on there properly, and I think all of a sudden this would look very, very cool if you actually had the three colors on it. They do give you a fair number of color apps though. You've got the gunmetal down there at the end, you've got this white part here for the sight. This part here is going to move, so it should wrap around the forearm. It actually feels a little bit solid, although I don't think it's actually going to help keep it on unless we're just talking about gravity there as the hand holds it loosely, as this is prior to pegs in the manipulators. You do have the trigger part that attaches on there. You also have this part which can lift up, and that'll be used to attach it to the core fighter. And then you've got a white part in the back to go along with some cool looking thrusters. Now the core fighter was a really important feature of the Neo Gundam, and it's recreated really well here in plastic model form, but it's the kind of thing where from a distance it looks great, and you get a little bit closer though and you'll start to see some of the flaws. First of all, you are going to have two blue parts here, and you're going to have a clear cockpit, which is looking good. You can bend this part down and bend this part in, and when you do that, it's very easy. You can just see that this is going to slide in and attach on there, so it's going to be a little bit separated, and then you're going to have these wings, which the shoulders are probably going to cover up mostly, but you can angle them to make it look a little bit dynamic. But other features include lining opportunities here on the wings, and you can pivot them as you saw about 180 degrees, so that's pretty cool. The only thing is that these blue seals, you do have to be careful putting them on, but I'd say that they've gone on pretty well here, and you don't really notice the fact that they are seals unless you get up really, really close, and of course I focused to get them on properly on the top part as opposed to the bottom part. Now here you can see that there's nothing really exciting down there, but you are also going to have this bending part here for the beam sabers. You can put these in, and you do have the white handles here, which is going to look good when it's on the back of the Gundam. Just remember that they're going to be green when you actually put them in hand. But something that pleasantly surprised me is that you've got this part which is actually molded out of plastic, and it's white and red, and the red is molded on the inside, but it's going to show through, so it looks like you're getting three colors out of only one piece. Put the seal on there, and that's looking very, very sharp, and it again just gives it all these color apps, it seems, all over the place. This seal is one of the ones that's just a little bit too big for the part, but overall I have to say I'm pretty impressed with this. And in terms of size comparison with the RX-78-2's core fighter, you can see that this one is going to be a lot bigger, though remember that most of this is actually exposed as opposed to being inside. And with the GBRD, or the G-Bird, attached, you can see that it's actually looking pretty cool there. Which brings us to the last and most important part, the head here, which is a few good things. First of all, when you put it together, you're just going to have a gray polycap there, and you are going to have clear green for the eyes, which goes along with the shield, beam sabers, and the cockpit there for the core fighter. When you put it together though, you're just going to have a front and a back part there, so that leads to a little bit of lining inconsistency. Thin lines up there, I chose not to go along the ridge at the top. You've got these parts here at the back. But on the front, you've got something that's looking pretty different from the silhouette Gundam, I'd say. You've got big vents there across the front, some channels here. You could put in more lining there if you wanted to go around the rounded parts. This part is actually molded into the face, but it's unfortunate that this part up here is actually made up. This is two big red seals that are going to make this up. It's molded in white and yellow, but if they could have molded it in red and yellow, that would have made a lot more sense. And then you just drop a green seal on, but instead you've got one that covers this part, and then the bottom, and then you've got another one that's going to wrap around. I've tried to Q-tip that down as best as I can, but you can imagine that it's going to be peeling up a little bit there. And I did have to use some black ink there around the eyes. You do put a reflective silver part underneath the clear green part, so it's going to look pretty good. But without the black ink, you would just have a mono eye kind of thing in terms of it being wide and green. But overall, I'd say it looks cool and unique. This just should have been molded in red. Overall, putting this kit together was more fun than I thought, although you are going to have to put up with some patience with the seals, and it's a kind of thing where it looks good from a distance sometimes, but the closer you get, the more disappointing it is. Of course, the range of motion and some of the attachment, yes, they've come a long way in the last 20 years, so it's sort of to be expected. But anyway, stay tuned for the next part where we can see how the mobile suit looks and whether this is worth adding to your collection if you are a fan of the manga or the more obscure mobile suits. Anyway, everybody, thanks for watching. Please let me know what you think with a comment down below, and we'll see you next time. Bye.